My father produced the original Roots. LeVar and my father worked together about 40 years ago. So I inherited not only the legacy of the show, but I also inherited the rights to the show, or portion of the rights to the show. And for many, many years, a lot of people wanted to make the show and tell the story again, and I was very resistant. I said no. I was afraid to try to mount this project again. It was too successful the first time. It's in the shadow of my father and what he accomplished. What's going on in the world today socially, for me to do this project would be complex and difficult. So I basically said no forever, until about 4 years ago I sat my son down to watch the original Roots. He was 16 years old, and it was very difficult for him to watch the original Roots because it was made in the 70s. He wasn't connecting with it. He didn't want to watch it. He wanted to leave the room. And I forced him to watch all of the miniseries. And at the end of it, he said, I understand why Roots is important, but Dad, it's like your music. It doesn't speak to me. And it was at that singular moment that I realized, all right, I got to buck up and take the risk and the challenge of trying to tell this story again for all the people like him that need to hear the story again, that need to understand this, that need to find a way to connect with the story. Well, the story is always going to be the story. Alex Haley wrote a story of a family and how it moved. There were sort of two primary ways that I knew I needed to connect. I always used my son as the prototype for who I was trying to reach. I knew we had to produce it technically better than the first one because we have the capacity to do so. Better cameras, better sound equipment, better makeup, better lights, all that kind of stuff can be much better now. I knew that we had the capacity to tell it in a manner that is more common today, a faster pace, a faster style, more intense, more honest in its portrayal than it could be 40 years ago. And finally, I knew that we had better historical information than even was available to Alex Haley. To take all that information from all the experts that we had working on the show every day in different areas, to have them tell us and share with us the new historical research that existed, and to be able to adapt the miniseries to represent all that information. These were the three critical things I think that we changed from the first one to this one so that we could connect with the young audience.
When I first heard that Roots was being remade, I was very resistant to the idea. I guess I was afraid of stepping on, muddying the legacy. And then Mark, he shared with me this story, his very personal story of trying to show it to his son. And I got immediately why it needed to be done. And in that moment, I committed to myself that if I had an opportunity, I would really want to be involved. I figured I had two choices. I could stand on the sidelines and judge the effort, or I could get involved and try and contribute and make it as good as I felt it could possibly be. It wasn't as difficult emotionally for me to surrender the character of Kunta to Malachi at all. Once we found him, and once I was convinced that he was the right actor for the role, and once you meet him, once you see the heart of this man, you will understand why he got this job. I love this man deeply. I feel like he's very much a combination of a son and a younger brother in my life. And I think he's done an extraordinary job. He committed fully. He did not leave anything off the table. He went for it. He gave his all to this role, and it's all on the screen.
There was a lot of research that I did, but I also think that being in the South and being of the South, I'm not from there, but I have family from there, that the story never feels so far away. There are so many things that have continued, whether it's in the food or just cultural things that we have kept with us within the church as we interact with each other, that these people don't feel like strangers when I approach them on the page, which is I think a blessing. It wasn't offered to me, unfortunately. I had to audition, so it wasn't like I heard of it and like the offer came and I was like yes or no. But I had been told about it. I was asked to come in for actually a different role, and I requested a meeting because I wanted to know what Mark's position was on the why of A New Roots, and who was he? What was his spirit about? What was this going to be? Was this going to be something that was going to be solely a commercial outlet, something taking advantage of the need for and the cry for diversity, or was it going to be a truthful story told from an honest place? And it wasn't until I had the meeting and spoke to Mark and spoke to the director and was assured that this was being told from a place of responsibility, that I looked at it in a different way and thought, okay, well then this is something that would be interesting to me, because I'm not interested in taking advantage of a story, but I'm most assuredly interested in telling the truth.
It's an experiment, actually. We don't know. I certainly do believe that the viewing of Roots is an opportunity for families to sit down together, and I hope that a lot of that goes on. And I anticipate that people who are watching will go to that second screen and they will have a conversation. They will tweet, with each other and continue the conversation in the online space. I think that's a good thing. I don't know that we could ever expect to garner the numbers, the many millions that watched the original Roots in America the first time. But as Anika said earlier today, we have an opportunity with an international audience to have maybe more people watch Roots this time around. So,
in the same way that we had to produce this differently for the audience of today, we have to accept and embrace the way that people want to consume it now, and not shy away from it, and not expect that it's going to be like the old one. We're not trying to be the old one. We're the new one. Consume it how you want to consume it. As long as you do, and that you speak about it, and you understand it.
We're in the same place that the producers were in 1977, because nobody knew how the audience was going to respond to Roots, right? The reason it was broadcast in 8 consecutive nights of television was because they figured if nobody watched it, that they'd be over and done with it, in a week's time. No one knew that it would go on to become this huge juggernaut, this social phenomenon that just captivated the nation and then went on to be incredibly successful around the world. They just didn't know. We don't either. We've done the best we could. We've told the best story we know how to tell. And now we have to let it go.
Well, people don't even eat dinner together anymore, really, But when families feel that something is for a family, they will come together. And this is a family story. I did the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, 2008, I think it came out. And it was very interesting because I have people coming up to me now saying we were so happy to see that. It was the one thing that we would watch weekly and the whole family could and would watch it together. Now, Netflix was out then, but it wasn't streaming. So the streaming thing has changed a lot of things. But I think that when people are called to something, they come to something. And so hopefully this will be a clarion call to people to sit together with their children and with their parents and grandparents and have this experience and talk about it and say what it is that moves them, and allow it to also be a teachable thing, and not in a didactic way, but in a way that your heart is moved and your mind is moved, and you learn something that you didn't know, because it's certainly not in a school book.